I'm Christy.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome back to our podcast. And on this episode, we will talk about spirit dreams. So this episode will talk about dreams from the metaphysical viewpoint, spiritual viewpoint.
Yes, the psychic point. I've got some good stuff coming up for this.
But of course, we can't talk about dreams without also talking about the scientific and neurologic viewpoint of what our brain is doing while we're sleeping. So this really excites me as a professor of nursing. I have lectured on this topic too, and I love the topic of dreams. There's so much.
And excites me because my thing is, as you know, the metaphysical, but also I love the mind and right up my alley with psychology. So
yes, so we are really excited about this particular episode. So, Christy, do you want to go ahead and share with us the viewpoint of what dreams are from that metaphysical perspective and maybe even historical perspective?
Oh, yeah, because, you know, us history nerds, we
Yeah.
got to include in some history as well. But yeah, definitely, spirit dreams are dreams that carry a deeper significance, often believed to be messages or guidance from the spiritual realm. So, even if you do a little bit of historical research, there were ancient civilizations who were recording things about dreams in early Mesopotamia and Egypt around 3100 BC. Even psychologists and psychiatrists have often studied dreams. In fact, Carl Jung, he was a well-known psychiatrist, but he was one of the ones out of all of those that deal with the mind, like the psychologists and so forth, was the most connected with the spiritual dream beliefs. He believed that dreams were connected to the unconscious mind, including spiritual aspects that helped one with their own individualization and spiritual growth. So there's got to be something to dreams, right? I am a very, very, very big believer in dream symbolism. I can dream something and then turn around and, okay, I think this is what it means, right? Or this is a message that I'm being given from the other side. So there's a lot of significance with dreams.
And dreams and visitations, so to speak, those are things that a lot of clients come to us with as far as our paranormal investigation team goes. So that is something that often comes with the claims. We've had people reach out to us and say that they thought that they've seen spirit come visit them in a dream, like a past family member, and they're wondering if the activity in their home is this person. I have my own family members who swear that they've been visited by past family members giving them messages before. And this is family of my own too. So, you know, when you know people and you talk with level-headed folks, it's tough to be a skeptic when people believe so much and feel the difference between a dream visitation versus an actual dream.
For sure. I mean, you mentioned, you know, your family members having dreams, mine as well, but also our clients, not just dreams, but they also, well, with the dreams, they'll say like, you know, we believe that this man that's haunting our house, for example, is who we're seeing in our nightmares, right? And they'll be like, what does this mean? Why are we seeing them in our dreams? So yes, not just clients, but we have our own personal experiences with dreams. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit more and share some of my own personal experiences with that as well. So where do dreams come from? That is the question. Of course, we've got that scientific side and the metaphysical side. So metaphysical, I would say some people do believe that it's the way that our soul is able to communicate with that spiritual realm to receive some sort of guidance and gain some insight into our path, right? But now, when we look at that scientific viewpoint, Kathy, I know this is right up your alley, not just the skeptic side, but the medical side as well with nursing.
Yes.
Can you kind of explain dreams from that, you know, scientific viewpoint? What are those stages of sleep, etc.?
So this is all dream visitations. As the skeptic, it's hard for me to think on that level that it is actual visitation. I personally have not experienced what I would call a visitation from spirit or a past family member or loved one.
You don't know what you're missing out on then.
Apparently I'm missing a bunch, but knowing what I know about our brain and how it works, I've lectured on this topic with nursing students before. I'm a nurse as a profession. I've had my own personal experiences from the paranormal side, things that I can't explain, even in hospitals. Some of my favorite places to investigate are hospitals.
Oh, you're
of course,
going to tell
because
us
of that
your
background.
hospital stories later.
We will get there, I'm sure. But
yes.
But as far as dreams go, this is something that I feel really strongly about teaching to my students because, one, it's about our physical health and the restoration that our brain goes through while we sleep. So many of our listeners have probably heard of the sleep cycle. I'm sure many of them have also heard of the REM cycle, that stage of sleep where we have rapid eye movement. And that is when we're in that dream state and where we're visualizing things in our dreams. But starting from the beginning, as soon as we go to sleep, our brain goes through different stages where we're in light sleep initially, we go into a deep sleep, and we go in and out of all these different stages of awakeness. Sometimes we have brief periods of wakefulness throughout the night and we're not aware of it. They happen just for a few minutes.
Especially if your husband snores.
Right. And then we can drop right back into a deep sleep from a wakeful state. So we're in and out. And if you ever have one of those smartwatches that can track your dreams, this is really interesting to see the waveforms and how long we spend in each of these cycles. But in general, if you're a healthy person who with a normal sleep cycle, you're going to be in that super deep sleep stage at least in the first half of the night.
Is that the REM now?
No, this is your deep sleep.
Oh, I thought REM was your deepest sleep. No.
Not necessarily. No, and this is where our body is recovering. So physical recovery happens in your deep sleep. Now, in the later part of the night, we're spending more and more time in that REM stage of sleep. This is why it's important to get your full 8 hours, because if you're waking up after only 4 or 5 hours, you really don't give your body that chance to spend time in that REM stage. And that's where you're getting cognitive restoration and emotional restoration. So if you're not sleeping right, it's no wonder you're not thinking right and irritable if you don't get a full 8 hours of sleep. Your brain needs that time to recover. So during REM, you're sorting your thoughts from your day, you're placing things that you've learned throughout the day into your long-term memory. That's why it's really important for my nursing students to get a full night's sleep. They can store what they've learned in studying.
I've always learned it as like a psychological brain dump.
It kind of is.
It's like rebooting a computer.
You're putting it into storage.
Right.
Yeah.
You're defragging it. You're putting everything back into place.
Right. It's your brain's file cabinet.
Right.
So your brain sorts through those files, puts all your new thoughts in there, probably goes through some of your memories, which is why you're having all these dreams and why things are weird, because you're overlapping thoughts, your fears come out during that time, and so your brain is really cleaning itself up and getting it organized.
And that's why they say don't fall asleep with the TV on or a radio on, because your brain does need that time to, defrag
and then you're really going to have
itself.
some weird dreams. Well, set it and forget it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times I've been guilty of this myself, right? I will fall asleep watching TV, and then all of a sudden I find myself dreaming about some stupid infomercial, right?
Yeah.
And that is because I do know that while we are sleeping, not only is our brain going through this refresh process, but it's still taking in and processing information that is around us.
Right. And like I said, you can go in and out. So you can go to wakefulness and you can drop right back into a deep or a REM stage sleep. So you will have brief periods of wakefulness. That's normal. The longer those wakeful periods are, the more aware that we're awake at those moments. But it's important for our brains that we need sleep just as much as we need food, water, shelter, warmth, clothing, all those things. So it is super important.
Okay, so what part of the sleep cycle, I guess, because we've had a lot of clients that's come to us before, and they have like this. I wake up and I have like this old lady or this demon sitting on top of me. And, it's known as the old hag syndrome.
Or sleep paralysis.
Right.
Many people know it as that, yes.
Right.
So I believe science can explain that. That is part of the protectiveness that our body goes through while we're sleeping, is we are chemically paralyzed by our brains.
That's so we don't beat ourselves up in the middle of the night, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And people with sleep disorders may get up and walk around during that sleep stage. So this is somebody who needs medical assistance to help with safety, because they get up and walk around, they can get injured. So when our brain is functioning as the way it should, we should be paralyzed. Now, some people may still have some of that paralysis if they're woken too suddenly from that dream state. So science believes that what you're seeing, what you're feeling, isn't actually there. It's just part of that paralysis. It feels like a weight on you, like like you said,
a pressure, or someone
sitting
on top.
You, a demon's crushing you, or as people feel. I mean, it's very scary if anybody's ever experienced it. But I do not believe that is paranormal, just because science can explain that. And it makes sense with the way our brain works to protect ourselves during sleep.
Right. And they say that a lot of times like you were saying, your mind wakes up before your body does. Right. And it's that chemical release that actually your body does to paralyze you. And so if your brain is awake and you're looking around and you suddenly feel like you can't move,
right.
Well, no wonder you'd be scared, right?
Yes.
And then the things that people see. But
right.
This old hag syndrome or sleep paralysis has been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had so many of our clients that report it.
Right. And it does go away if you give it time. Of course, it's very, very scary. And if it happens to children, I can't imagine the terror that they might
for
feel.
Sure.
Not really understanding what's going on, why they can't move, why are they paralyzed. Anybody would, I'm sure I would if I experienced that. I not personally experienced it. But again, that type of phenomenon I would not think is paranormal. However, I am an open skeptic. I'm open to the possibility that we're in an open state of mind when it comes to our consciousness, that if spirit wanted to visit us, I could see how that would be a receptive time for somebody to receive things, because our sleep stages are in frequencies. Our brain waves are in frequencies. So if something wanted to interact with that, I could see how that could be possible. It's just science hasn't explained how that works yet, obviously, or even that spirit can communicate with us through dreams.
But and they may not ever be able to prove that or say. But no, for myself, just speaking, I have definitely experienced spirit visitation in my sleep.
Right.
In
if
fact,
you see them during the day or hear them during the day, I can imagine your nights must be a party.
Yeah. And, when I first started learning about my gifts and how to use them, it was so very hard for me to block any spirit at night. So quite often I would be interrupted with different spirit, and I would wake seeing them beside my bed, or they would interact with me in my dreams. In fact, I have a couple of stories that I'm going to get into and share that have just stuck with me for so long. So it's like, I don't know if science can explain this or not, Kathy, but it's like, how do you tell the difference in between a regular dream or a spirit visitation dream?
That's what I want to know. I don't think science can. One, it's definitely going to tell you you're not having a spirit dream. That would be something you would probably answer. How do you know the difference between a spirit visitation and an actual dream that's your own thought and your brain sorting out your own thoughts?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes. I lecture on this too when I do some teaching for the public, but how you
as far
tell,
as like paranormal lecturing, like,
yeah. No, a scientific convention.
Mm-hmm.
No, yanking your chain.
I'm just
being
not
sarcastic.
Sure.
No, definitely.
We've given some presentations in the past in metaphysical conferences before, so
yes. Now, that's usually the only time that I will lecture on something like that. Yeah. But how you tell the difference basically is that your spirit dreams are very, 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 very vivid. You can remember things like colors, conversations, details about a dream.
So more so than a typical dream, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
So
in fact,
do you feel like it's more like a lucid dream? You're aware that you're dreaming?
Not always.
When you're having a visitation? No.
Not always. There's some times where I have been visited and I'll wake up and I'll be like, okay, was that an actual spirit visitation, or was this just, what was it? But there are some that I can definitely tell. Spirit visitations stick with you. They're with you for a long time. You can remember them for weeks or days or months afterwards, years even. Dreams, as a matter of fact, are stored within your short-term memory. So within 5 minutes of waking, if you're not recalling and trying to remember your dream, half of that dream is already gone. Within 10 minutes, 90% of your dream is gone. And that's because, again, they're stored in your short-term memory.
Yeah, that's a question people ask us a lot, and that I can answer from the scientific viewpoint of what happens when we wake up. So if your alarm goes off and wakes you up in the middle of a dream, you were probably in the middle of that REM cycle when that alarm went off, which is why you remember the dream. But because many people say, well, how come sometimes I don't remember a dream when I get up? Or your alarm just happens to go off while you're in the middle of that light sleep and your body was already starting to waken. So do you think that has something to do with, or you think spirit visitation is going to happen no matter what stage of sleep that you're in? Do you think?
I do believe that it can happen in any stage, but I do think more commonly probably in that REM. Just because I think your conscious mind is more wide open, and as you mentioned earlier, your mind is not concerned with the hustle and bustle of the day. Spirits find that time a little easier to come in and be able to speak with you or show you things. So dreams themselves, everybody dreams. And I've heard people say, oh, I don't dream. Everybody dreams.
Yeah.
Whether you remember it or not, everybody
dreams. You're just
dreams.
a good sleeper. You're waking up at the end of one of those sleep cycles as you're slowly coming out of your REM and your deep sleep stages. So,
right. Even the hardest of sleep, like me, I sleep hard. I always joke and say that a tornado could blow through and I would sleep right through it. So, and other people are light sleepers, but dreams in general last anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes.
Right.
And
each cycle, you go through several cycles each night. So each cycle in and out of your deep and your REM sleep and your light sleep usually is about 1.5 to 2 hours at a time. So again, like if your alarm cuts you off in the middle of that, that might be why you remember a dream.
Right. One of the things I hate is like when you're dreaming a dream that you don't really care for and you like wake up for whatever reason and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go back to sleep, but I'm not going to go back into that dream.
I want to find out what happens. Sometimes it's like a movie. It's
well,
like,
not if I'm being chased by a zombie or something. I don't want to.
I don't know what your brain is sorting out there with zombies.
I'm telling you, I have a brain that's like Stephen King, right? I could write some stories off some of my dreams. So yeah, you were asking what the difference is between like regular dreams and spirit dreams, and one of the things I think, like I was mentioning, very vivid details just really sticks with you. So let me give you an example of that. My stepdad died back in 2004. It was a couple of days before Thanksgiving. And I was on vacation at the time and was in California. So when he passed away, I wasn't able to, be there. But I did attend the funeral. I came immediately and was able to attend the funeral. So my mom and stepdad used to watch my daughter whenever I worked nights for the sheriff's department. And my daughter kind of had this stubborn streak where she didn't like being told what to do. I mean, natural rebellion of kids, right? And my stepdad, he was firm, but he was loving. And so my daughter would get really aggravated and mad at him. And like after he died, she felt really bad for some of the ways that she treated him and some of the things that she said. And so I also felt bad because I wasn't able to be there. Well, a couple weeks after he died, I had this dream about him. He came to me in my dream, and then little did I know he also came to my daughter in her dream the same night and visited us. And when I woke up, I didn't tell my daughter anything about the dream, but my daughter came to me and she said, Mom, she said, I dreamed about Papa Howard last night. And I said, you did? She goes, yeah. She goes, he came and was there by my bed, and I told him that I was sorry and that I loved him. And he said, that it was okay and that he loved me too. And I thought, wow. So my dream, I told her, I said, yeah, I dreamed about him too last night. So in my dream, he came to me, and I did apologize for not being there when he passed away. He said that he understood, and I told him that I loved him, and he said the same, that he loved me as well. And then he said, I want to apologize to you. And I said, apologize to me? I said, for what? He said, for not believing you and for the things that, you do, which he was talking about the metaphysical and the paranormal. And he goes, I understand it now that I'm on this side. And I thanked him and I said, if Mom would only be able to understand it too. He said, as well as I do, that that's not going to happen until she's on this side as well. And that always stuck with me because, they, again, coming from a very religious background, my mom and him went to church regularly. It was very strict. And there was paranormal was taboo. You just, again, didn't get into that. And so for him to come through and say that to me, that meant a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that my daughter and I both dreamed about him that same night and had that visitation, that's pretty unique and not quite a coincidence, So that has stuck with me for years and years and years. I will never forget that.
Especially since she didn't used to have dreams like that. Was it typical for your daughter to come to you to say, hey, I dreamt about this person or that person?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so, again, spirit visitation. And I knew that was real because I knew what I felt during the dream. I knew what I felt afterwards. And, sometimes spirits will come to us because they need help or they just want us to know some information. And some people have said, oh, yeah, I've dreamed about my mom, but in the dream, I couldn't talk to her, but yet I could hear her.
Yeah, I've heard that before too.
Yeah, and that's very typical for spirits because on the other side, again, they don't have vocal cords. So it's kind of like this mind-to-mind type communication that happens on the other side.
Like a dream telepathy, yeah.
Yes, for sure. And I know a lot of times I've tried to open up my mouth in a dream and it's like it's glued shut. I can't get it open, but I know that I'm still communicating back and forth with them. So
in your memory, it's almost like you had a full-on conversation even though you couldn't speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That conversation was still going on.
Yeah.
So, and then I've had spirits come to me and ask for help. One particular time, there was this little boy, his name was Adam, and I'll never forget this. He's not very old. He's probably 4 or 5. And sometimes spirits will show you through their eyes what they know or what they've seen. Mm-hmm. So this little boy came to me, and he showed me this field. And in this field, the grasses were very, very, very high. Probably, 3 or 4 feet high. And so he showed me himself laying there in the field. And of course, he's deceased. And he said, I need you to tell my mommy and daddy where I'm at. And he told me his name, and I said, well, Adam, do you know where you are at? And he said, no. He said, I'm just here. And I'm like, well, do you know your mom and daddy's first name? And he goes, no, just mommy and daddy. And it was really important for him to get that across to me that please tell my mommy and daddy where to find me. But he didn't know his own location. And all I saw was an open field and I had no way to know where his location was. So sometimes situations like that is heartbreaking because, the spirits are coming to you in a dream and there's just nothing you can do for them.
Right, and they want help and you feel like you can't help, yeah.
Right. But sometimes spirits will bring other spirits to you for help. So I always tell people it's kind of like you're in this dark room and the stronger that your gifts are, the more bright of a light that you're going to put off. And this attracts spirits. Kind of like
a moth to a flame.
Exactly, right? So one night, my stepdad, Howard, brought this girl to me by the name of Alice. And Alice was about 16 years old, but mentally, when she was alive, she was not 16. She was a lot younger. She was maybe, I would say, 7, 8, okay? And she showed me this, beautiful mountains, and there was this valley, and there was, this river that was near their house. And they had this farmhouse, and there was some barns, and there was cattle. And she showed me that she had this sister, and she also had, her family had hired this younger boy. I would say he was probably, 19 or something. And he was kind of like a farmhand that was working
Right.
and helping on the farm. And he befriended Alice, and try to say this as politely as I can, but he tricked her into like this friendship, lured her into this barn, and took advantage of her sexually.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Alice was very confused. He took one of the pieces, I don't know if it was a pitchfork or what it was, but he hit her in the head and he killed her. And then he took her body and dumped it in the river. And she could not understand what it really had happened to her, or why her friend, his name was Billy, if I remember correctly, why Billy would have done that to her, because that was her friend.
Right.
And so she was a very trusting spirit. And she really didn't understand the transition from the physical world into the spiritual world. And she told me that she's still there on the farm, but doesn't understand why her family is ignoring her.
Right.
And so my heart really went out to Alice.
Yeah.
And she even showed me there was a search. I saw bloodhounds with like law enforcement searching the area.
So
Billy had disappeared.
So at the time that you had this visitation from her, you think her family was still there? This was like a fresh case, or was this kind of something from history?
From the look of the clothes and things like that, I would have gauged it to possibly be 30s, 40s, maybe.
So maybe her family wasn't there even still at that time, right?
Possibly. I mean, it's hard to say, but from her perspective, her family just ignored her. She couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
They couldn't see her, why they weren't interacting with her. And sometimes spirits will carry over their afflictions. So say, for example, just like in Alice's case, she was feeble-minded. And so when she was in spirit, since she's earthbound still, she carries over that feeble-mindedness with her.
Okay.
And sometimes spirits can carry their afflictions. Like if they walked with a cane because they had a bum hip, they could do that in spirit until they've transcended and gone over. So spirit visitations, they come to us for whatever their reasons are. And they know it could be like if it's a loved one, just to say, hi, I'm here, I'm okay. Others, they could want that help, just like little Adam and Alice.
Right. Yeah, and we've had these conversations over investigations where you're the flame and they're the moths coming in to visit.
Yes.
They see you and they want to be heard. And we've come across some times where we're sitting there on an investigation and you're picking up on spirit. You know, I know we're talking about dreams, but this will happen during an investigation, similar type visit where they need something or they just want to communicate something. And you've said before that they present themselves in the way they perceive themselves. So if they're not aware that they've passed, they'll still be in the state that they were as a living being.
They can.
Versus somebody who knows they've passed and present themselves to you in their own image, their best image.
Honestly, I think that just depends on their intent. So, for example, we did an investigation. It's been years and years ago, and this is before you even joined our team. Actually, a coworker lady of mine, she had lost her son, and this is not why she called us to do it, but anyway, her son happened to come through for her that night. But her son died of SIDS when he was just a few weeks old. But when he came through to me, he came through as a young adult. And I think that was so that way he could communicate with her. So another example is my own dad. I lost my dad to pancreatic cancer in September of 2019. Now, my dad was 68, so still young, but getting old. You know, he had gray hair and stuff. But I've seen my dad several times in dreams since his passing. And I remember one dream in particular, which was like one of the last times that I saw him. He actually chose to be seen as a younger man, like in his 20s. And he used to tease and when he was alive, and he would say, "Oh, I'm just as good looking as Elvis Presley," right? Because he had the jet black hair and, his little lamb chops that went down on the side.
So he presented himself to you as a younger 20s?
Yes. And I think that was a time.
I would think that spirit would show you, especially if it's somebody you knew, but you knew it was him.
I knew it was him. I had seen pictures before and had this conversation. And sometimes spirits will do that because they are most comfortable at that point in their life. Maybe that was a time where they felt the best, right? Or liked how they looked. And my dad always admired his looks when he was younger rather than when he got older. Because, you get older, you tend to put on some weight, and, your hair starts to thin and gray. And so, but I'd seen my dad prior to that, looking like his normal self. And then I'd seen him another time when he was like in his 40s. So I think it's just their intent at the time, right?
Right.
Another example was sometimes they'll show me their stages of death. So I remember doing this one investigation. I can't remember where it was at, but I'd actually seen this lady, and she was hanging. I think it was some building that used to be like a courthouse. And I saw her and two others hanging. And it was really kind of frightening because I saw the rope around her neck, and I seen her eyes bulging and like not, state of death.
Eesh.
And I've seen some people's state of death before. And again, it's their intent. They want to show you how they died. So they will show you those gruesome scenes. And I've even had to tell spirit before, hey, I don't want to see that. Don't show me that.
Just
right?
tell me. I'll believe you.
I remember this other investigation, and I won't get too far off this last story here, I promise. But since we're on that topic, I was doing this. It was like a turn of the century Victorian style house. It was down in southern Oklahoma. And the story behind this was this man had two daughters and a wife that lived there. And it was like during the 20s, like the Depression type times. And he was getting ready to lose his house and lose everything. And he ended up taking a knife in the kitchen and killing his wife. He goes to murder his whole family. And he's telling me this story. But he took a knife and murdered his wife in the kitchen. And then his two daughters, he took it was like some sort of like bat, and he beat his daughters in the head.
Oh.
I know, very sad. And he took his wife and two daughters down to the basement, and he covered them up in like this white sheet, had these white sheets around him. And then, because I was asking him, how did you die? How did your family die? So he's showing me this. And then he shows me in the basement of this home, and he's sitting in this chair, and he's got this gun to his head, but it's like underneath his chin. And bam, I seen the trigger pull, I heard it, and then I saw his brain matter.
Yeah.
And
this is during a dream visitation, or is this during an investigation?
No, this is during an investigation, but we were talking about intent.
Right.
And so, and he said, well, be careful what you ask for.
Right.
So from that point forward, I try not to ask too much for details on death.
Right.
So that is their intent. And their intents can, when we're talking about dreams, why do they come to us? Is it a message? Are they asking for help?
Right.
Spirits have their own reasons. And are you able to tell them apart? Trust me, if you get a strong enough dream visitation from spirit, you will know.
That's what I hear all the time.
Yeah.
You'll know.
I had another one where I had this.
That's why it's so intriguing as a skeptic. It's like, because you're talking to level-headed people and who had normal dreams, and this isn't something that happens every night. There's no clinical reason for them to say that they're, having dream visitations. They don't have any diagnosis that I'm aware of from a psychological point of view. Your normal everyday person has this really strong experience, and deep in their gut, they know this was not a normal dream. This had to have been a visitation. And so that's what's so intriguing about it, which is why I'm open, because I want to believe people. I don't want to be... We all want to believe that there's something beyond us, and that we can communicate, that our consciousness continues on after we lose our physical body. So it's interesting because it's like dream visitations are yet another form of psychic ability or psychic gift, I guess. Because I have my family member who's told me stories about previous family member visiting to let her know that they're coming to greet another family member and help them across before that they pass. And then the next day she finds out that that person had passed away, in fact.
Kind of a premonition in a dream. Yeah.
Yes. So she would have, she told me these stories, and, from the core, she believes it deep down that that's truly a visitation from a family member. And so it's almost like that is her own personal gift or psychic ability in a sense. And
you've never had any sort of spirit visitation in dreams at all that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I've always been open to it because, I've heard the stories of family, and I say, well, how come I don't seem to have a gift like that? Although I've been told I have a strong intuition. But, I feel like we all potentially have some kind of gift, especially women. I think it's a protective thing, it being the primary caregiver of children. When you look back, and our nature is to nurture as women. And so we have to be in tune with other people and our surroundings for safety. So being in tune with other people's thoughts and emotions and being open is always something I think that is inherent to women. But
well, I'll ask some of my ghosty friends if they will come and visit you in a dream so you can have that experience.
I know. But you're always telling me that that's not how this works. It's not
I know.
Prove.
I was just kidding.
I
it
know,
doesn't.
Right? I wish it would. But I'm open to it. I'm ready, to hear from people that I've lost, too, that I wouldn't mind coming to visit and say hi, let me know they're okay.
Yeah.
I think we all feel that way.
Oh, for sure. And, something funny about that is I have seen some of my family members in dreams, but not all my family members. And so I wonder, it's like, why do I hear from some and see
others?
some? Yes. Right. I've always kind of been puzzled about that. And so I don't have an answer to that, but I kind of wondered, I was like, is it the religious aspect? Because my mom's mom and dad, very religious, of course, that side. And I've never seen my grandmother. I've never seen my grandfather.
On that side.
But I have seen like my mom's sister, my aunt. I've seen some like on my dad's side, my aunts, my uncles, just,
Or maybe we're a little more open to metaphysical existence.
In fact, my grandfather, my dad's dad, very interesting. When he was alive, in fact, I'm finishing up on the book about my dad's life, and my grandfather is in there. But when he was alive, he did have a problem with alcoholism. It was coping mechanism, of course, for the past abuse and things that he experienced, while growing up. But he ended up, after he died, he died very tragically. He was drinking, thrown out of the car rolled over him and killed him. And I had never heard from him or seen for him. And I was probably, 4 at the time when he passed away. And so about 4 or 5 years ago was the first time that he had ever visited me in my dreams. And it was so weird because I met him. It was like we were in there was like this yard, and like those big cement drain, they're like a drain pipe, right? It's culvert, but it's cement. Mm-hmm. And they put them in a lot of times in industrial or commercial places. So in this yard, there was a bunch of those in there. And I happened to be walking through one of them, and I saw my grandfather, and he was kind of walking toward me. And I knew who he was, and he knew who I was, even though I was very young at the time that he passed. And he said hi and told me he had regrets about, if he could go back and do things differently with his kids and his wife, he would, and kind of this tale of forgiveness. And I knew that he was earthbound just from the feeling that I got in the dream. Well, I ended up in my dream crossing my grandfather over to the other side. I know, I've done work in my dreams before.
Wow.
And I'd like to...
I knew you do that work when you're awake. I didn't realize you do that.
But in my sleep.
You're always working. Never off the clock.
Working 9 to 5. I know.
And 9 to 5 and 5 to 9. And
right. But yeah, it was a unique experience because, I wasn't close to my grandfather. And that's something else we hear people say is like, well, I wasn't close to such and such. And I don't think that really matters as long as you're connected one way or the other. And since then, I've never heard from him again. I know that I crossed him over and he's there. So dreams are very, very strange. There's symbolism.
So do you think then that those who can communicate in your dream just haven't crossed over? They're all earthbound?
Oh, no, not at all. I believe that there's some who's also transient, guides to come over and give us messages to help. But no, not all earthbound. And again, in a previous episode, I described how you tell those apart. Those earthbounds have that very heavy, low energy. Your transcendents have that higher energy, higher vibration level. So no, I don't believe that they're all.
It seems that if they've crossed over, they don't really communicate psychically or show themselves on an investigation. I know that you've told me before that there's choice to come back, but we don't usually see that. Usually what we experience on an investigation,
more earthbound,
when you're picking up on our earthbound or transient spirits coming in and out.
Right, but I have had transcended come,
right?
But it's usually
coming from the other side.
Yeah, they've already crossed over. They're not earthbound, right? And they come over with a message for that loved one, like the client that we are investigating their home for. And usually loved ones won't create a haunting. That's also something very important to note. We find
they tend to protect.
Yes, or bring back warning, or maybe, they're protecting one of the children or all the children or from whatever is in the house.
So do you think it's more likely they would come back to give a message and warn, and maybe that it's rare that they come to actually protect? Do you find that
No, I believe that they come to protect as well. Yes, yes. But not to create the haunting. They're not They're not going to be the ones that are opening your cabinet doors or, turning off on your TV.
We've had some cases where it seemed they did create a little bit of havoc because they were trying to get the attention of the people who live there.
To get attention, but not like where they're scaring you out of your boots.
Like to alert them, hey, they're not happy with the situation and they want to make it known. So they try to distract them from the chaos that's happening in their lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there to give a message that, hey,
knock it off.
Or I've got this important thing that I need to tell you.
Yeah.
Yes. For sure.
Yeah.
And then symbolism. I don't know. Have you ever had a dream that's really been puzzling to you and then you go to look it up? Like, what does a gray wolf in a dream mean or whatever?
I told you how I got into the paranormal. I used to read books about things. So that you hear these stories like, okay, so
Ghosts for Dummies.
A book. Well, there's these dream dictionary. And I always thought those were fun. More fun than looking up your horoscope in the newspaper. But on the similar scale. But over time, I had a really good book once. I used to have this recurring, not really nightmare. I mean, it sounds like a nightmare. this is before I ever moved to Oklahoma. I never lived anywhere near where you have tornadoes. I was always 30 minutes from a beach somewhere, so hurricanes were more of a big deal for me.
Right.
Growing up and most of my young adult life. Only in the recent 15 years have I lived where there's tornadoes. But before the time that I moved to Oklahoma, I would have a recurrent dream with a tornado in it. And it was
still
the
in my
same
thunder.
Dream.
That's my story.
Oh, you got one too?
I've got a tornado story.
See?
Yes.
Okay, so my dream dictionary had mentioned that it's symbolic of change occurring in your life. So I don't know. Does that make sense to what your dream was? What was your dream about tornado?
Well, yes and no. I've had several, but I think we could look up the basis of a symbolism in a dream. And then you have to see if that really applies or matches to what you're feeling or what your dream has told you. So tornadoes for me have always been a warning.
Right.
So only is
this
change.
One wasn't coming at me though. I wasn't really in danger. I just kind of stood in awe of it. So, and when you think about, you almost could take this from a scientific level. You could look at somebody's dreams knowing that it's you and your brain sorting out your thoughts and your fears and your emotions from the day or what's going on in your life at the time. I've had even my children come to me with strange dreams and why did I dream such a dream like that? And it made sense with what they did that day, what maybe they were worried about, and things colliding to make a confusing story or an image or And I've even thought about my own dreams. It's like, okay, when I sort it out, it makes sense because this is what was happening. Yet, these two things were happening in my life, and they kind of overlap and create this weird dream. And so if you really stop and think about it, you could kind of see how it makes sense, how your brain kind of goes there.
Oh, no, I totally believe that. In fact, in the beginning of this episode, I mentioned Carl Jung, right?
Right.
And fully believe that our brain and our soul are able to connect, and they're able to forewarn, right? Or show us things that, hey, beware, right? I know that spirit does that as well, but our brain, it's a natural process for our brains and our consciousness to do that together. So like when I was talking about tornadoes, I've had several to where, so for an example, I was very unhappy at a job. This is several years back, but I was very unhappy at a job, and the two bosses that were there were untrustworthy. They were doing a lot of, not so good things within the company. And I had a dream that my family and I were on vacation, and all of a sudden we were in this parking lot getting ready to go to our car. And off in the distance, like this tornado, like the skies got dark, this tornado dropped, it started coming toward us, and we had to find shelter. And everything around me was just destroyed, but where we were at was safe. And so if you look at what you were saying, the tornado of change, right? That symbolism of change. But yet, yeah, I could apply that. There was a new job coming for me. This old job was leaving. But tornadoes for me have always been warnings that, hey, you do have change coming. If the tornado comes close, then, I know that it comes close to the danger, but I'm fine. If I get hit by it, then I know that I'm going to be affected in some way or another. So dreams definitely contain symbolism.
Right. Well, and the book also did say at the end, if you're somebody who lives where there are tornadoes, your dream is probably about your fears about that. But you grew up in Oklahoma. You're from
Okie native.
So the book would have kind of explained that away. So that's the skeptic that would say, yeah, that's why you dreamt about tornadoes. But if you're somebody who frequently dreams and is frequently aware of them, you can interpret your own dream. You see that and feel that as change or a warning, in a sense.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that you could see it that way too. But it still leaves that door open again in that openness of your brain and your consciousness, where spirit finds it's easier to communicate to people when they're in that dream and open state, because you've kind of put all your walls down. You're vulnerable. You're not really protected. Your consciousness is put aside for a little while, and that makes sense. That could be a point where an opportunity for spirit to communicate.
Oh, absolutely, for sure, absolutely. And I really believe that you can't take every dream literal, even if it's coming from spirit. You still have to use your good judgment on it. But I do believe that there are, like, we have our angels and we have our guides, and, we have relatives who will come through dreams to be able to help guide us along our way. And it's what you do with that dream. And like you said, not everybody is able to experience that. Take yourself, for example. So do you feel like if you were to actually have that experience, would that change your perspective? I mean, I know you said that you're open-minded, right, on it.
But I think I would have to experience it and let you know. But, you were talking about how your consciousness keeps your dream memory just for a short period of time.
Yes.
So it kind of made me, as we're sitting here, think about, well, if you had a true visitation and you remember all these details long after your supposedly short-term memory drops that dream, that could support more the visitation theory, in the sense that you're able to explain every detail even long after you've had this dream. But I still have long-term memory of these recurrent dreams. I think because they happen over and over again, they end up in my long-term.
Oh, sure. Well, even from a psychology perspective. So let's say, in my profession, if I'm treating someone for PTSD, well, part of the PTSD symptoms is oftentimes nightmares. One of the things that you can do with that is to rewrite that nightmare. Have that client rewrite it and then read it or recite it. Go over that dream 3 times before they go to sleep. And that the theory behind that is to be able to conquer that in your dream. So when your brain
control your dream and
exactly
rewire
yes.
your brain to think differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
When your brain is refreshing and doing what it does, then you're
it makes
you're
sense
in one
from
in
a
control.
psychological viewpoint, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So there's a lot to dreams.
And I can see a dream that really impacts you, whether it's a nightmare or whether it feels really, really real,
Running from
like a
zombies.
visitation.
I'm just kidding.
That's how, things go into your long-term memory.
Yes.
When you attach it to a memory, or it becomes a memory, or like a core memory, if you see it from that perspective. But that's like a study technique we tell our students is, try it when you're studying, try to remember this fact and attach it to some story, because then that'll put it into your long-term memory where you can recall it easier. So somehow these dreams end up in your long-term memory, which is why we're able to recite it with detail.
Yeah. I've even had it where half of a dream makes sense, the other half of a dream doesn't make sense. And so again, you have to figure out what you have going on in your life. Is this really spirit visitation? Is just something that your mind is making up, with your consciousness? Right. But you'll know.
Yeah.
I promise you, when it comes to spirit dreams, you will know. You will just feel it. Everything is so vivid. Everything is clear. And it's almost like that message just impacts you and stays with you. When it comes to dreams, we'll definitely have to do a future episode on OBEs, which is out-of-body experiences, because that kind of is along the lines of what we've been discussing. And
right.
I will share with everybody my experience of when I died and came back and what I saw. So definitely we'll have to have people stick around for that episode.
Right. Yeah, there's so many side topics we can take dreams, and we could have an episode on dream interpretation,
astral projection.
Yes, there's all kinds. Well, and again, I think that the scientific side says, oh, you were just dreaming. So there's a lot of connection with the paranormal and skepticism that relates to dreams that just more for us to talk about. So
right.
if you have your own personal experience of a dream visitation, or what you think is a dream visitation, or if you have a question, your own parastory, send them in to us. Email us at psychicandskeptic, all written out, at gmail.com. And if you have a dream that you just can't explain, Christy,
I will help you interpret that. That is also one of the things that I do for many of those that I do readings for and help out, is dream interpretation. So if you got one that's got you stumped, email it in to us. I'd be more than happy to help you out with that. Maybe even put it on air.
Send us your parastories too, and we will read those on a future episode. So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.